So this is another post from the group Seeking the Truth that I will be exposing for this next video. Guy named David Michael Meliti wrote this intro note to a post he's sharing, as you see here. Now let me quickly address this introduction note that he gives. You see, a lot of people want to give claims but not back them up. Where is his proof of his statement that this hybrid corrupt name arose from combining foreign vowel points of Adonai with the Tetragrammaton? He gives no documentation of proof, not even facts for his case. This is known as a conspiracy conclusion, where you attack a viewpoint or statement by inventing or fabricating this theory with no proof provided. Or you can provide documentation that doesn't really prove it, but you read in between the lines and fabricate something from that does not exist in that source. So far, that's all he has. A conspiracy conclusion that there was some tampering with certain vowel points of Adonai with his Tetragrammaton. That's all he has. He takes some truth, like for example, the letter J did not arrive until most likely, according to most historians, around the 16th century, and supposedly older Hebrew had a W sound than a V sound. That's probably true, but then he adds a conspiracy to it. So how can he begin his intro statement with truth 100% if he can't prove factually his accusation? So why don't we just dismiss that theory of his, since it should not be taken seriously anyway? But then he says, additionally, as if to be fully convinced in his mind, that he has already given proof which he has not. But he says, look at the latter part of his explanation. This is another common false accusation that just because the letter J didn't exist, most likely in Hebrew or Greek, that makes it evil and wrong to use. Ridiculous. Consider these two Google searches, as you see here. Basically, if you take a Hebrew word with a Y sound, it would translate into English most likely with a J sound. For example, Jehovah is in Hebrew. That is a fact. Here's the Hebrew word. It is pronounced as Yah or Yah sound, like Yahweh, which don't mistake that for Yahuwah, this stupid fabricated nonsense vomiting sounding name. Yehovah, probably because it sounded with a W sound back at that time in ancient Hebrew. Here's another Google search. And then a source from Wikipedia. So just because the V sound and the letter was not in Hebrew, most likely, does not mean it is evil to use. A difference in of itself is not evil. It depends on what kind of difference you are talking about in context. Therefore, there is no logical reason to believe that Jehovah is evil just because the letter J and the letter V are used. So already, this guy is just a misrepresenting conspiracy theorist clown. But then he quotes this guy named Henry Alcantara, and I'll expose a conversation I had with him later on near the end of the video. But here's his picture. He's one of these know-it-all, self-righteous Pharisees. He thinks he's better than you because supposedly he may have studied Hebrew or Greek. But he wrote this post on why the name Jehovah, according to him, was proven to be a monstrosity. Here's his explanation for his first point. Focus on it. Beginning with however and ending with Adonai. So far, my rebuttal is that he did a lot of storytelling. Here, that's a fact. No documentation of proof. Again, condemning vowels with no logical reason. Lastly, resourcing to the Talmud, which is a source made up by man and their traditional beliefs and practices to condemn it further. That's a major red flag. But I have some challenge questions, and all four of these challenge questions I asked him in Facebook Messenger, which I'll show you, like I said, near the end of the video. Here's the first question. Very straightforward. Did you talk to the scribes and ask them why they introduced these so-called foreign vowel points? Do you know of any witnesses alive today that witnessed the scribes introducing these vowel points? Unless you were there at that time, there's no way you can prove this accusation as fact. He did not say who these scribes were, where they came from, what time period they lived in, and lastly, if they were believers on the Messiah. And people are so dumb and gullible to take accusations like this Henry Airhead seriously? Not surprising. Question number 2, as you see here. Since you are accusing these foreign vowel points as corrupting the sacred name, then you must have access to that supposed sacred name before it was apparently corrupted. So what is the sacred name, and how do you pronounce it, spell it, and possibly translate it into another language? If you don't know the answer to the original standard that you hint to have access to by your accusation of its corruption, then you have no case. You're just storytelling a bunch of hot air statements, and you expect all of us to swallow the Kool-Aid and be stupid enough to believe you. Anybody can make up a conspiracy about anything. Question number 3. I mean, seriously, did you talk to Peter or contact him by email and ask him about it? Do you know of any witnesses alive today that witnessed Peter publishing this form? If not, then you have another empty accusation. Question 4. How would you know Peter's state of mind of understanding what these scribes supposedly had done? These are questions a false accuser like Henry will not answer. He will not answer it, and I will prove it to you by the end of this video. Then he introduces this so-called doctor of what he had to say about the form Jehovah. He says all of this. Now focus on this as I'm refuting it. A lot more storytelling. I have further challenge questions. Again, how does he know that it was introduced by Galatians but was unknown until 1520 by him? Second, how do you know it is erroneously written and pronounced Jehovah, which is merely a combination of the sacred Tetragrammaton and the vowels in the Hebrew word for Lord, substituted by the Jews for Jehovah, or those letters, because they shrank from pronouncing the name owing to the old misconception of the two passages like Exodus 27 and Leviticus 24:16. How do you know it was erroneously written? By those conclusions. If you're claiming something to be erroneous, then you need to have the standard source of what it should be to compare it to. Otherwise, you can't conclude it to be erroneous. Duh. Question number 3. How do you know it's a hybrid for a combination just because vowels are used? Are you giving the implication that just because vowels are used, that makes a word evil and wrong? I have already proven that Jehovah is in Hebrew. It's a fact, because it's translated into English as Jehovah. Duh. See, people who do a lot of storytelling don't have any proof, really. They might give documentation of borrowed sources that they read from somebody else, which is probably second, fourth, fifth-hand information. According to a Google search, it is true that common sources agree that the word Jehovah probably did not appear until the 16th century. However, that does not prove that Jehovah came into existence by perverting the so-called sacred name by adding vowels to it. You take a historical, accepted, established source of historical record, like the name Jehovah not appearing until around the 16th century, and then you invent a conspiracy around it that it originated because of a corruption of adding vowels to the so-called sacred name that you don't even know what it is to begin with. Nobody should take that accusation from Henry Airhead seriously. This is a very good example of rambling and storytelling with no proof. They like to throw rocks of accusations, but they never hit the target of logical consistency. And if you people are so gullible and naive to accept what these two people say about the name Jehovah without using logical sense, you have completely crippled yourself from being intellectually honest. And this is just a side point of exposing immature, professing fake Christians who are just self-righteous Pharisees, pretending to be holy in God's eyes, but they are really sacred name heretics, trying to divide the body of Christ and sowing discord. This guy, Henry Alcantara, or Henry Airhead, I would like to call him, is one of these people. So, I send him a message, and here's the messenger with these specific questions. The same one that I went over in the video that I just exposed his post and the one who posted his post. I asked him these same 4 questions. Very specifically, I said, I saw your post about the name Jehovah in the group Seeking the Truth. Regarding your accusations in your article, I had the following questions for you. I asked these 4 questions, and then I said, how would you know Peter's state of mind of understanding what these scribes supposedly had done? In the last addition to the 4th question. How does he answer this? By dodging the questions and putting some accusations of his own. And asking questions of his own, like you see here. See, he calls these questions I asked nonsense. Of course, because he's too stupid and immature to answer them. He's not even humble enough to answer them, because he knows that I just put him in the corner and he can't answer them. You see, this is how you know people are a waste of your time. When they dodge your questions and want to accuse you, like he's been doing here, you know that he's a waste of your time. Then he posts some stupid accusations about, oh, Jesus comes from Zeus, Krishna. That is so stupid. For one, Jesus is 2 syllables, Jesus, hello, and Zeus is 1. This guy obviously cannot count. Then some stupid other picture. How do I know this is true? Can you still ask how true is the etymology of Jesus Christ? He completely dodges the questions. So I respond with these 2 statements, also a thumbs up. I expose people like this, these immature, self-righteous Pharisees, because they deserve to be exposed. You need to stay away from these heretics, these false teachers, who are on their way to hell and in the lake of fire. This Henry Airhead is going to be turned away by Jesus Christ when he stands before him. He's going to get the shock of his life. So people, don't listen to bozo clowns like this Henry Airhead. Don't listen to people like him, because they're so immature they can't even answer simple questions. Won't even try to humbly explain them.